As a mixed race man myself, I haven't experienced too much racism in the course of my life. So, a little backstory on myself: I grew up in San Diego. I was born in 1994, and I went to a private Catholic elementary school, private Catholic high school. I grew up with a single mom, had some help, financial aid through the schools, and also relatives that helped pay. And so I was able to have a middle class upbringing, and I was able to go to those private schools, and I had a good childhood. And just looking back on it, though, when it comes to racism and experiencing that as a mixed race person, my dad is 100% black, dark skin, brown eyes, and my mom is 100% white, blonde hair, blue eyes. And so I got a pretty good 50-50 mix, good genetics from both, a pretty even features wise of both, where sometimes a mixed race person tends to look more black or more white. I got a pretty good, like, in the middle mix. But going through life like that, especially when we're talking about race, there's a bunch of different races and nationalities, but especially in America, it's usually pushed as like black and white as like the two main talking points. So coming from the perspective of someone who's like in the middle or both, um, I never really experienced racism growing up. Like even in school, when I had friends, it was like, this is my friend. It wasn't my white friend or my black friend. And it was interesting growing up and now seeing that we're all adults, how the world tells us that that's what we are, or it affects our jobs or our circumstance or our trajectory, or it's something that we're forced to think about now because the world clearly takes that into account. So it's funny, like even like running into somebody from elementary school or talking to someone from elementary school about life, and it's funny because um, like that's just whoever, or I'm just Mason, and that's just John, that's just Joe, but it's just like, but it, like to other people, no, that's like a black guy, that's a white guy, and it's like weird to like see myself. I'm a mixed guy with green eyes, and I'm like, that guy's Asian, that guy's Mexican, that guy's black, that guy's white. Like it's so irrelevant and it's so stupid, but at the same time, it's so significant in terms of like the petty differences of how that affects someone's trajectory. And if it's going to affect your trajectory, it's going to affect your money, and that affects like your rent, which also affects like your health and your opportunities. So like something so irrelevant causes other areas to be very relevant, which is why it's something that you have to take note of, even though it's kind of annoying to be forced to take note of. But the experiences that I have, the few experiences with racism that I've had, it usually comes from whether black people have some sort of like light skin, some like light skin privilege view on it, or you don't, you're like a whitewashed black guy, or from the white guy side. Um, like they're used to other white people, so you're like the exotic one or like the different one, or like again like also the light skin privilege, like you're the one that's different. So like from both ends, you're kind of the different one. So you don't fully belong to either, but then you kind of belong to both. So it's which is funny when it comes to the duality of life anyways, of just like 50-50 and how things are. So it's just like me being mixed is kind of like a super funny example of duality. But I've noticed more racism in terms of just like looking at it through the world and like seeing it around me. And not even sometimes too when I've experienced things directed at me or myself. Sometimes it's not even just like blatant racism, but it's just like ignorance of a person who doesn't understand certain things. Like one time I was talking to this homeless guy downtown, this white guy, and he was like playing music on his guitar, and I was talking to him for a little bit, and he asked me some questions about like some certain things that were going on that day or whatever, and he was just kind of like playing his guitar, not really paying attention. And then as I'm talking to him, he looks up at me, and then he like looks at me, and he gets all like kind of taken aback. He's just like, "Oh, why are you like staring me down? Your eyes are kind of snakish." I'm just like, I just look at you when I talk. Like I'm just looking at you. Like I'd stare people in the eyes when I talk because I'm not, what am I gonna do? Like, oh, like look at the ground, like, hey, what's up, dude? Like, no, I'm gonna like look at you when we talk. But I notice through time that when you have like bright, piercing green eyes and you're also confident and you also look people in the eyes, sometimes that's taken as predatory, or it's taken as threatening. Whereas if a guy that had lesser confidence and like brown eyes, like a more neutral color, it's not seen as much as he's just staring into their eyes or like staring into their soul. That's another question I get, or a comment, especially sometimes from like women. It'll be really funny too. It's like I'll be like talking to a girl. It's like, why are you staring into my soul? It's just like, well, if my eyes were brown, would you say that? But I don't know. Like, but it's because they're like bright, piercing green, and then also with the tan skin and like the personality that goes with it, people take it that way. So no, not necessarily racism, but my race and everything combined affects how that person is viewing my character, my motives, and everything. So it's been interesting to see that over the years. I've noticed where it's hurt in certain senses, where I was talking about like not belonging to a certain group. So it hurts where you don't fully fit in with one group. So I guess you can be excluded in certain circumstances, but also it helps too because it opens up opportunities and you're more ambiguous. Like my last job before selling tie-dye, I worked at a hotel here in San Diego, a luxury hotel on the beach, and I'm not sure if it's that way anymore in terms of the ranking, but when I worked there, we were number one on TripAdvisor in San Diego. I think it's still up. I haven't really checked. I haven't worked there for a little bit, but the number one hotel in San Diego on TripAdvisor, on La Jolla Cove. I started as a breakfast server. I also did other departments. I'd be like a utility person, but it's like, I didn't have a degree. There's other applicants for that position. I didn't have hotel experience, but I'm a well-spoken mixed race guy, and I can do well socially with young, with old, with black, with white, with rich, with poor. So my ambiguity in terms of just how I am and how I was born, that helps for a hospitality job at a high-end hotel where you have to talk to people from all over the world. So that could have been an easy factor for me to get the job. That could have, it was. That was a huge reason that I fit well for that hospitality job. Now, say, like I was talking about how my mom raised me, my mom's white. Say had I lived with my dad and we lived in like the inner city or something, and say, so now because I live with my dad instead of my mom, my entire life is different. I'm the same person physically. I'm here as me, as Mason. I'm like the same guy, but the difference between my white mom raising me, my black dad raising me, could change certain things. What if I was raised by my dad? Now I talk a little bit different. What if my thoughts of the world are different? Now at that point in my life, if I walk into that hotel, is my character in a way at a high-end hotel in San Diego on the beach where most of the guests are white, do I get the job? Do I have that like well-spoken demeanor, or like that like I mentioned, like do I have that like that whitewashed demeanor, like where he's black but he's not too black? It's just like the whole even too, I talked about in previous content how I was contacted for the TV show The Bachelorette 2 seasons ago for the Hannah Brown season. They asked me to apply for that show as one of the 20 guys that dates her for like marriage or whatever at the end of the show. And you look at that show, I've never seen the show prior to them contacting me, so I was looking into it, and it's like, of course, it's mostly white guys, and they pick a white girl as the lead, and they pick the one or two token black guys. And then a couple seasons ago, they had one black girl that was like the Bachelorette. And I think this next coming Bachelor season, they have a black guy, but again, he's mixed. And so it's like I told people before, even when I was getting contacted for this, I'm like, look, it's a TV show that caters to white women. And so they have to take that into account when it comes to the guys they select. And yes, more than white women watch the show. I'm not saying that like they're the only girls that watch the show, but it's America. And that kind of setting where it's like, oh, we're gonna have this dating show, and we're gonna find true love, like that's generally like more white people are gonna watch that. So because it's more white women watching that, they have to take that into account for their ratings of who they select. So I would tell people, I'm like, look, if they ever do have a black bachelor, even like before getting contacted for that, they would only have white bachelors up for how many seasons they've had. And I told people, I'm like, look, the black bachelor, if they do ever do one, it's going to be a guy that's black enough so that black people will go, okay, we respect this guy, we respect that choice, but he can't be too black to where they lose a lot of their white women audience. And what do? They pick this mixed race guy for this upcoming season, especially with all that's going on in the world right now, like the timing of it to finally pick the black bachelor. And then he's not even full black, he's mixed, he has a white mom, like he's not like, I hate to say it this way, but he's not like a full, like, true black contestant. And I hate using that kind of terminology with it, but when it comes to why they're selecting certain people, it's true. The reason they reach out to me is because I fit the black guy role, but I'm not gonna deter their white audience. Like, I'm gonna have plenty of white women on that show that would still like me as a contestant, and that's just reality. Like, they're not gonna pick a guy that has like dreadlocks and from the inner city and talks a certain way. And so, me myself not really experiencing too much racism on a personal level from where I grew up too. And like I said, I grew up in San Diego. San Diego's an awesome city. It's a melting pot here. There's so much diversity, a lot of different races, a lot of different cultures. San Diego is just chill. It's like LA in terms of Southern California weather and vibe, but it's less celebrity, less congestion. It's just nice here. It's like paradise. So just on a city level, I have not experienced too much racism. Like, and we have like certain neighborhoods that are better than others, but there's like San Diego, there's not really like a bunch of areas that are just like bad parts. Like, oh, you just don't want to walk through there. Like, if for a big city, San Diego is relatively safe. And so, just the mixture of the city I grew up in and going to a private school and being middle class and always having a maturity of myself and just who I am as a person anyways, and being able to get along with people, I was able to do well with both races, but then at the same time, I didn't fit in fully with both races. So even though I didn't experience like full-on racism, comments here and there, but whatever, but I noticed more in the world, and I noticed more from being a kid and just seeing people as my friends and growing up, and now saying, oh, well, that's my white friend, or that's my black friend, or I'm mixed, and the world categorizes us. So it's been interesting, and it definitely affects things.